If you want to get your first cloud job, I'm going to walk you through the 10 most important things you need to know to be successful. These are the lessons I wish I learned when I was getting started in the cloud industry, and knowing them would have massively accelerated my journey. Make sure you keep watching till the end because I have saved the best for last and you don't want to miss that. The first thing I wish I knew was how to escape tutorial hell. For those who don't know, tutorial hell happens when you keep consuming tutorial after tutorial without really learning how to apply that knowledge to real-world projects. This means that you become really good at following tutorials, but if you're given a real project, you don't feel confident enough to tackle it on your own. You never end up developing the skills of a cloud engineer, and this isn't ideal. There's a simple trick you can use to escape tutorial hell, and once you know what this is, your cloud skills will accelerate. The trick is really simple. If you're following along with a tutorial or a course, once you understand the scenario, so what they'd like you to achieve, I want you to try and figure it out on your own without watching a solution video. So for example, in my Cloud Career Accelerator program, one of the scenarios students have to go through is creating an auto-scaling group. And as you can see from this diagram, you need to create a VPC with public and private subnets, you need to create EC2 instances, auto-scaling groups, and a load balancer, and more. And so rather than just immediately watching a solution video in the course, I always encourage my students to try and figure it out on their own. Go on Google, go on Stack Overflow, Google your errors, read the Amazon official documentation, and this is how you really engage with the material and you can really begin making those connections that will help you be successful. Now, a word of warning though, if you do this, you will become frustrated because you'll realize that it's quite difficult to do these things. It's simple enough if you're following a tutorial, watching someone else do it, but once you actually try to do it yourself, it's a lot harder than you think. But the good news is that this helps build your troubleshooting muscles, and the more you do it, the better you become. So embrace that frustration because this is the way to become successful in the cloud industry. The next step I'd recommend is that you get a solid learning plan. A good learning plan will help guide you and build your confidence. It provides a roadmap to structure your learning. Trying to learn cloud skills without a roadmap is a recipe for disaster. There are so many technologies you need to learn, and if you make the wrong move, you'll end up wasting a lot of time learning things that won't get you closer to your goal. I've made multiple videos on what your roadmap should look like. I'll link to the best learning plan video I've made at the end of this video, so make sure you stick around for that. To summarize, there are 3 key stages to your learning, and I have called them foundation, automation, and communication. In the foundation stage, you should learn technologies and build projects on a simple level. You should learn things like the Linux command line, AWS CLI, and you should build projects using the Cloud Console. In the automation phase, you should learn more advanced technologies such as infrastructure as code like Terraform or Python, or just things that will help you script and automate infrastructure. CI/CD is also essential to know because there are a lot of companies that use it to deploy their applications and resources in a secure and automated way. Once you've gotten a lot of high quality projects under your belt using these technologies, you can then move on to the final stage, which is the communication phase. Here you learn all about how to craft your resume and write about your projects in a way that attracts the attention of recruiters. You should also learn how to interview in a way that impresses hiring managers. The next thing I'd recommend if you want to get a cloud job is to build a learning discipline. Have you ever found yourself struggling to find motivation to work on your cloud skills? Maybe you realize that you're not studying as much as you would like to. You're starting to feel guilty because you're not working towards your dreams. That's okay. I was exactly the same at the start of my cloud journey. Some weeks I'd be super productive, other weeks not so much. My progress was really slow and I never felt like I was making the right progress towards my goals. That is until I stumbled upon the solution. The answer was really simple. Rather than relying on motivation, I decided to rely on discipline. Let me explain. When I used to rely on feeling motivated, I would only put in the work when I felt like it, and guess what? I rarely ever felt like it. There was always something more fun for me to be doing with my time, like hanging out with my friends or watching Netflix or killing time on YouTube. However, when I chose to rely on discipline, everything changed. I decided that every weekday I would work on my cloud skills at least 1 hour a day, and on weekends it'd be 2 hours a day. Because I made this promise to myself, I had to stick to it even on days when I didn't feel like studying. This meant that I was able to accelerate my cloud growth. Every week, I was able to dedicate at least 6 or 7 hours to improving my skills instead of the 1 to 2 hours I was putting in before. Now, don't get me wrong, Implementing this disciplined approach is hard, but trust me, once you get going, you'll find yourself becoming more productive than you've ever been before. Here are the 2 tips that help me to make this process easier. The first tip is to set yourself an easy target. When you start taking a disciplined approach, rather than committing to an hour a day, try committing to only 15 minutes a day. This means that every day you work for 15 minutes to try to improve your cloud skills. And in this time, don't check your phone, don't scroll on Facebook or LinkedIn, just focus for that 15 minutes on nothing else but your cloud skills. Trust me, after doing this for a couple of days, you'll find you can increase your focus from 15 minutes to 30 minutes and then 45 minutes, and pretty soon you'll be doing an hour easy. The second tip is to always set aside the same time every day for your studying to take place, because by being consistent, it will become easier to form the studying habit. In my case, when I tried to break into the cloud industry, I already had a full-time job doing something else. Usually I had to wake up at 7 a.m. to get ready for work, but to build in this new habit, I decided to wake up at 6 a.m. every day so I could spend an hour studying before my day officially started. I did this because building my cloud skills was the most important thing to me, and so I always believe in doing the most important things first. By doing my cloud work early in the morning, this meant that my evenings were free to hang out with friends and just relax guilt-free because I had already studied. The actual time for you might be different. You might choose to do it at 6 p.m. or 8 p.m, but what's really important is to find a time that works for you and pick the same time every day and stick to it. Once you build in this daily habit, you'll not only find your progression accelerate, it would also make it easier to study, because once it's a habit, it becomes easier to study than not to study. It might take a week or 2 for you to build in this habit, but it's worth it. Stay disciplined. I'm curious to know what time of day you find works best for your studying. 6 a.m, 7 p.m, or some other time? Make sure you drop your study time in the comment below. Are you enjoying these tips so far? Let me know by smashing that like button, and of course, please subscribe. Alright, let's crack on. A trap I see a lot of cloud beginners fall into is to try to learn multiple cloud platforms at once. They try to learn AWS, Azure, or GCP. At the start of my cloud journey, I thought learning multiple clouds would make me more employable, and on the surface, this makes a lot of sense, right? The more clouds you know, the more jobs you can apply for. However, now that I have experience under my belt, I can tell you that learning multiple clouds for beginners is deadly. It's a mistake for 2 reasons. The first reason is that the cloud platform you learn is only a small component of the technical skills that employers are looking for. Some other skills employers value include programming skills, CI/CD, Docker, Terraform, and much more. The time you spend learning the second cloud platform is time better spent learning these other technical skills that employers are looking for and integrating them with the cloud platform you've already learned to produce high quality projects. The second reason is that learning one cloud is difficult enough. AWS alone has over 200 services, and there is so much to learn with one cloud, and trying to learn more than one means that you're not getting deep enough experience to be valuable to employers. The reality is that most companies only use one cloud platform, and they need engineers who have deep experience in that particular platform. And so if they read your resume and see you've had shallow experience with multiple clouds, they just assume you don't have the deep enough experience that they're looking for, and they're more likely to reject you because of this. Once you get your first cloud job and have built up significant work experience, it might be worth exploring these other cloud platforms. But if you're at the start of your cloud journey and have not secured that first job yet, forget about learning multiple cloud platforms. There's an old proverb that says, if you try to catch 2 rabbits at once, you will end up with none. So pick one cloud platform and go all in on that. Another mistake I see a lot of cloud beginners make is focusing too much on certifications. It always surprises me every time I come across a cloud beginner who has 3 or 4 certifications and yet struggle to create a simple web server using the Linux command line. Don't get me wrong, 1 or 2 certifications is fine because they give you a high-level overview of various cloud services and they help improve your general cloud knowledge. But please, don't expect certifications alone to help you get into the cloud industry. This might have worked 6 or 7 years ago when cloud roles were relatively new, but the landscape has changed a lot since then and cloud jobs are a lot more competitive. This means that employers now have higher expectations and you only need to look at job descriptions to get an idea of what employers are looking for. And what they are looking for is hands-on experience with various technologies like Linux, CI/CD, Python, Terraform, and other technologies I've mentioned already already in this episode. Rather than studying towards your NERC certification, really spend time developing these high quality cloud projects. This is the best way to stand out to employers. Another mistake I see a lot of cloud beginners make that holds them back is applying for the wrong roles. There are a lot of tech influencers and bootcamps that make a lot of money telling cloud beginners that they can secure six-figure jobs as solution architects. What they conveniently fail to mention is that solution architect roles are relatively senior and they are usually given to people with years and years of real-world work experience. Don't get me wrong, you hear stories of one or two people who are able to become solutions architect with no technical background, with no experience in the cloud industry whatsoever. When you hear this, I want you to know that these are the exception rather than the rule. These people are a minority. Just like how winning the lottery isn't good career advice, neither is expecting to become a solutions architect as your first cloud role. For most beginners, your best option is to get a job as a cloud engineer or a DevOps engineer. There are a lot more of these jobs available for beginners, and after a couple of years, you can then work your way up to becoming a solution architect. About a year ago, someone who wanted to break into the cloud industry approached me for mentorship. He had applied to hundreds of jobs and received 0 calls from recruiters. After talking to him for a while, I realized he was making this classic mistake. Turns out the only jobs he'd been applying to were solution architect roles, because that's what he'd been told by the bootcamp he was enrolled in at the time. Once I advised him on the roles to apply for and fixed his resume, he immediately started getting calls from recruiters and ended up receiving not 1 but 2 cloud job offers. This shows the importance of applying for the right roles. So if you're a beginner, definitely don't apply for solution architect roles. The next piece of advice could be the difference between you getting a job or not. This is something I wish I had done more at the beginning of my career. What's the advice? It's really simple. The advice is that you must prepare for job interviews. The job market is extremely competitive, and if you get an interview, you need to make the most of it. Every time I have an interview with a job applicant, I'm always surprised when they can't answer simple questions like, tell me about some of the cloud projects you've worked on. You know this question is going to come up, so why haven't you prepared for it? I'm always surprised how little prepare for interviews. And of course, this means they don't come across very well in these interviews. If you had an interview that didn't go well, chances are this was a bad interview because you weren't prepared for it. When you don't prepare for interviews, you come across as nervous and flustered because you take longer to answer questions. This means that employers think you don't know what you're talking about and they reject you. Confidence is key. Now I know what your next question is going to be. How can you prepare well for cloud interviews? The answer is really simple. Start with researching the most common interview questions, then do some research on the company you're interviewing with so you can personalize your answers to them. Make sure you prepare the answers to the common interview questions, and finally, practice answering these questions out loud until you can respond without thinking too much. By doing these 4 things, you'll be able to impress hiring managers as you can answer the majority of their questions without stumbling. Let me give you a quick example to highlight the importance of interview preparation. If an employer was interviewing 2 candidates, both candidates have very similar skills and experience, but one candidate is able to answer all the questions confidently, giving multiple examples of high quality projects they've done, while the other candidate answers nervously with a lot of ums and ahs in between their answers and struggles to come up with compelling examples of projects they've done because they haven't prepared. The employer is always going to go with a candidate that comes across as confident and well prepared, even though technically the second candidate might be better, but they're always going to go with the candidate that's most prepared. This is why in the Cloud Career Acceleration Program, when a student tells me they have an interview coming up, I always conduct mock interviews with them so they are as prepared as possible and they can come across as confident and competent for their hiring manager. Remember, all you need is for one interview to go well. Don't waste that opportunity by not preparing. An easy thing you can do to catch the attention of recruiters is to share everything you learn on social media platforms like LinkedIn. When you learn a new technology or complete a new project, I encourage you to write about it on LinkedIn. By writing about the projects, it also has an advantage of serving as documentation in case you need to revisit the project in the future to remind yourself of what you did. But more importantly, it lets recruiters know that you're serious about your cloud learning. When you apply for jobs, the first thing a recruiter does is look at your LinkedIn profile just to get a sense of who you are. If they see you post regularly about cloud projects and topics, they are more likely to call you in for an interview than someone who doesn't. I recently needed to hire a junior cloud engineer position, and I narrowed down the applicants to just 2 candidates, but I could only choose one to interview. Both candidates had similar skills and experience, and so it was really difficult for me to choose between them. I decided to look them both up on LinkedIn to see what I could find out about them. One candidate was posting regular projects they were working on and the insights they had learned, while the other candidate's profile was empty. I ended up picking the candidate who posted regularly because I could sense that they were passionate about the cloud industry and were engaged. I could also see their writing style and I felt like I knew them. This exact scenario happens all the time. The reality is that recruiters get so many candidates applying for jobs and they can't fully research them all, which means that they have to make snap judgments and decisions and use shortcuts to determine who to contact. If you're a candidate who posts regularly about the projects and the cloud, you're more likely to stand out than a candidate who doesn't. Now, I know this doesn't really seem fair, but unfortunately, that's just the way it is. Next time you learn a cloud technology or skill, don't forget to post about it on LinkedIn, because you never know which recruiter is hiring and looking for someone with that skill just like you. At the start of my career, I wish I discovered the importance of having a mentor to guide me on that cloud journey. When I started to learn the cloud, I had no idea what I was doing, and I know I wasted a lot of time learning technologies that weren't important. I remember at one point, I was trying to learn front-end, React, jQuery. While it was fun to learn these technologies, they weren't really relevant to the cloud industry, and I would have been better off using that time to learn technologies like CI/CD and Python and Docker. A mentor would have been able to point me in the right direction and give me a learning plan that would have helped me to focus my efforts to achieve my goals. This is the reason I started the Cloud Career Mentor channel. Back when I was trying to break into the cloud industry, I didn't really know anyone who worked in the industry, so I had to figure things out on my own, and this cost me a lot of time. A mentor will help provide structure to your learning, which will significantly reduce the time it takes to break into the cloud industry. And if you can't find a mentor in real life, then subscribe to this channel, as I release videos every week focused on helping you succeed in the cloud industry. The final thing I wish I knew at the start of my cloud journey is probably the most important thing of all, and that is that I wish I had picked the right learning program to build my technical skills. This is so important because the technical skills and projects you develop form the foundation for everything else. For example, if you don't have the right technical skills and projects, then you won't have anything to share on LinkedIn, you won't be able to write a resume that attracts recruiters, you won't be able to prepare for interviews. It all goes hand in hand. If you didn't have the right program to follow, it would be difficult to build a disciplined learning regime, because when I sat down, half the time would have been spent wondering what I should learn that day, what resources I should look for, and I would have wasted a lot of time. Having a well-structured learning program is one of the best things you can follow to accelerate your cloud learning, and I noticed that there was a lack of good programs for cloud beginners like you to follow. This is why I created the Cloud Career Accelerator program, which has been designed to give you a structured learning plan and materials to be successful in the cloud industry. In the program, you build high-quality projects using technologies that cloud employers are looking for. Again, Linux, AWS, Terraform, CI/CD, Python, and much more. You'll also learn the non-technical skills that employers are looking for, such as how to write a resume that attracts their attention, and how to interview in a way that impresses hiring manager and convince them that you're the right person for the job. If this sounds good to you, then why not check us out at cloudcareermentor.com. Link is in the description below. Earlier in this episode, I mentioned that I had created a video learning plan breakdown. It's called How to Become a Cloud Engineer in 5 Simple Steps. Make sure you go watch it now. See you in the next one.